Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Engaging the Phenomenon. And today we are honored to have on a guest and a friend, Nathaniel Wear. Nathaniel Wear is the co-coordinator of the CE-5 Disclosure Outreach Project. So welcome, Nathaniel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, James. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's, actually me and Nate or Nathaniel, we know each other for, well over 10 years now,
Yeah.
We met back in Roswell, New Mexico at the Path to Contact conference in person, but online before that. So, Nathaniel, there may be some people who are going to tune into this. They may not be familiar with you or the CE-5 disclosure outreach. So I kind of want to hit basics here. How this here we're doing a UFO type podcast, but CE-5 engaging the phenomenon. How did you get involved in this whole UFO question?
So, it really began with my dad. He was bothering me. He was pestering me to, hey, come watch this. And this was in 2009, the spring of 2009. And so I finally, went into his office and sat at his computer, and I remember moving the mouse like, how long is it? And it was like 2 hours or whatever. And it was the '01 National Press Club event in Washington, D.C. And so I had a friend who was staying the night with me at the time. I was still a teenager. And when we started watching it, and I'll never forget, the beginning was, I was bored. And then whenever Dr. Greer came on, he started getting into some of the, you know, introductory things. And I, immediately was drawn in. And then just from there went down the rabbit hole pretty quick. So, about 6 months later, I finally attempted my first CE-5, and to my amazement, I had a sighting, had a contact experience, and I mean at that point it just confirmed everything that I'd learned. The extensive research that I was doing up until that point, in those few months. That I mean everything that was being shared at that conference was most likely true. And so from there, I just started getting more and more into it. And it was actually not too long after that that I reached out and found you on Facebook. This is
Yeah.
right when Facebook was new.
Yeah, seriously, and that created the original CE-5 initiative Facebook groups. So people who are interested in CE-5 and CE-5 world field work can connect with each other, find each other, coordinate groups. That's going back many years, 2009, 2010. And it's funny. I mean, for me too, I found Dr. Stephen Greer's work through the Disclosure Project around the same time after I had a number of encounters prior to that, and I was like trying to find answers, and I found the Disclosure Project, and I see all these high level military and pretty most of them are very credible witnesses. And then there's this kind of like this random doctor. I'm like, who is this guy? Right? Like,
Yeah.
you have all these high level military people disclosing their firsthand or secondhand experience with the UFO phenomenon while in service, and there's this kind of this random doctor there, right? And that's how I ended up finding CE-5, because I'm like, who is this guy? And then I found CE-5. But to backtrack a little bit, most people are going to be familiar with CE-5 here, but since we're here talking about CE-5, Nate, how would you describe CE-5 to people?
So, I mean, it really, in my opinion, boils down to, your mindset and where your heart is. And then also having a understanding of what it means for the future of humanity and our planet. So in other words, having an open mind and an accepting type of personality to these other civilizations, and then also some of the, I guess, consequences of those relationships that we could have, or that we do have, with these other people, and how it could change the trajectory of our civilization, and all life on Earth. I think that's a huge, uh, that's what CE-5 means to me. You know,
Yeah,
betterment of humanity and our planet.
yeah, and I mean, some people will consider um, that kind of phrasing as, in some sense, ontological shock. It's like a major paradigm shift that people may have in perception and awareness of just like when you have a CE-5 experience, it's like it's hard to say that anybody's going to walk away the same after having a genuine UFO encounter. I think once you have the experience, it's internalized at that point. It's not a question of, is this real? At that point, it's real, and a lot things just click in your head. I think you have realizations like, wow, um,
I think early on it's absolutely it's a shock, and then you're like, wow, this is real. But then you come back to earth and you realize, well, what is the purpose? What's the meaning behind this contact?
exactly. Yeah. Is there are there any particular methods that you use for CE-5? I mean, do you have your own kind of approach to it? Do you just go by the CE-5 protocols, or do you experiment?
So definitely experiment. You know, I believe that we should be open to any and all forms of facilitating our mind, and then whatever works for anyone, great. For me in particular, I typically like to listen to any of Dr. Greer's meditations, or anything from the CE-5 Contact app. But I've also gone into just playing random mantra tones, and then just getting my mind where it into a calm, clear state. So, but open to every facilitator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
contact modalities. And one thing I like about the CE-5 protocols is, in my opinion, they're like foolproof, right? Uh, like if you follow more or less for anybody, especially to the Western mind, CE-5 is a great kind of structured approach to how can I initiate a close encounter or contact experience with UFOs, non-human intelligence, or whatever you may think or feel is behind the UFO phenomenon. And even just as using that as a starting point, and practicing the CE-5 protocols as they're taught, and then uh, you know slowly experimenting and kind of expanding out into what works best for you through trial and error and experimentation, and working with other people in field work. I think that's always a great approach. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, do you want to explain maybe some of, maybe a few of your early CE-5 experiences, or even just one that stuck out to you, like, wow, this is,
Sure.
yeah,
So my first experience is it was in north central Texas. I was looking southeast. It was around wintertime, again in 2009. And I didn't really know how to meditate. I didn't really know how to, do the CE-5 initiative, just from, the basics of what I learned. Closed my eyes along with my girlfriend at the time, and I opened my eyes. I didn't hear any voices. I just opened my eyes, and there was an alleged star that was, brighter than the rest of the star field. And I was like, just kind of looking at it, and she still had her eyes closed, but I was like, and then it just shot up and away at a tremendous speed, and that was my confirmation.
yeah,
So that was my first sighting. Shortly after that, I had a number of sightings when I met up with Roman Cortez, and Nick Favalora, and Will Wyatt. All four of us got together, and it's kind of how we came up with the idea of CE-5 outreach. And not to jump into that right away, but I want to say that when we began to do uh, the CE-5 outreach, we had probably the most intimate and close proximity sightings and interactions, even beyond just the physical, just like what we like to call synchronicities were occurring. And it was just a amazing series of events during that period. And that was pretty early on, as you probably remember. Um, so, some of the other, one sighting we went to this resort at Sunset, Texas, and there was a bunch of trees with lights all around the trees. And before the owner left, he said, "Do you guys want me to turn these lights off?" And we were all said yes at the same time, and then we laughed because it's kind of
yeah,
funny, like, yes, we want the lights off.
yeah,
Well, shortly after the sun went down, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself there. They all flickered on, and we were like, "Well, what was that?" Forgetting that there were lights on the tree. Well, did it 2 times, and on the third time, they all stayed on, and we're like, "Oh, wow, that's weird. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe it's a timer." Later, we found out it wasn't a timer.
Yeah.
We had a some sort of object come directly, out of the zenith, straight down in front of our group, and made a U. I mean, it was bright, but it wasn't blinding. It's really
Yeah.
hard to describe, and it just shot back up. And I mean, this happened so quick. And when I said I got ahead of myself, is that same night before the sun went down, before this event, I had my first daytime sighting.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
and we seen it come out of the tree line. This, again, bright light, but wasn't blinding. It was like so bright, and it came up out of the tree line. It sat there for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then it started coming towards us, but at an angle. And then as it got closer to us, it split into two, and then it disappeared.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then we had a number of sightings after those two events that night, and then many thereafter. So,
Yeah. That was
uh,
the CE-5 Denton, Texas group, right?
yeah, yep,
Yeah, I remember
we,
that.
yep,
The t-shirts and everything. Old
yeah,
school, man.
right,
Yeah. So I mean, some of what you're describing is, it's not when you're doing CE-5 or any contact modality or any kind of interaction with, UFOs, non-human intelligence, UAP, however people want to call it these days, and whatever they ascribe to the UFO phenomenon. It's not just like, oh wow, there's a light in the sky. There's the synchronicities. There's even Dr. J. Allen Hynek, when categorizing close encounters, called high strangeness, because you know the high strangeness aspect was almost overwhelming, so much so that he had to make the special terminology for it. Yeah, but also, that the high strangeness aspect was an indicator of an actual close encounter with UFO intelligence, rather than, if there's no high strangeness, maybe it's some kind of uh, military project or misidentification or what have you. Not always, but
yeah.
that the high strangeness element is certainly an indicator of what, we might have something truly anomalous going on here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, and this is for another time, when we first kicked off the CE-5 disclosure outreach back in 2014, those amazing number of synchronicities that we had, we documented because they were too strange. There's like this everybody would call coincidence, but when they're a series, uh, you know, there's no denying that there's some kind of other, I guess, energy or field or what have you working beyond the scenes. So, but
Yeah. And, again, you're talking 2014. So this is well before the kind of modern UAP transparency era that we're now currently in, when kind of we can say that kicked off with the 2017 New York Times article with Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal and Helena Cooper, and this, kind of new push for disclosure occurred. So, you know, yeah, I mentioned this before we started recording. So you've been around kind of like before the 2017 and after where we are now kind of thing, and saw how maybe the UFO field was, the CE-5 field and everything. So, what are your kind of thoughts on how things were back then and to now? And, what opportunities may that present us?
great question. So, before, how I felt, it was kind of difficult with, the general public, let alone, your family or friends. They weren't ready to accept this information. Whereas now, that it's really in the public domain. And so I feel like, what a better time for our community, the people who know about these things, people who are aware of the reality of, UFO extraterrestrial presence. Um, for us to be the ones to, continue the education of the public. So I think it's a great time. Uh, it's sometimes unbelievable.
Right, right.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and then so I already forgot your second question.
I was just saying kind of the dynamic of like, how it was before and how it is now. But
Yeah.
it's certainly even a number of years ago. I remember when Richard Dolan in like 2011 or 2012 wrote a book called After Disclosure, and it was his kind of like simulation or hypothesis of if disclosure happened, how may it occur? And back then that was kind of like a cutting edge kind of thinking in the UFO field. But I mean, to see where it is now, I remember we'd get like one random UFO story in the news and be like, yeah, it's like a tiny victory, even if it sucked, or if it was like slightly mocking it, but it's like, hey, at least it's getting attention. Now it's like in the media pretty hard. And it could be confusing, right? Because you have all these narratives and views out there. And it's like, what do I do with this? Right. And that's why I love CE5, right? And have engaging the phenomenon, because like you could bypass any kind of narrative that's out there, potentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I mean
So
that's go ahead.
I kind of, to with the CE-5 disclosure outreach, the whole idea is to do exactly what you're saying. It's to bypass, I guess some of the narratives that are out there. And in addition to that, some of the algorithms that are online. Because let's face it, we all get online and we do, our part to help, raise the vibration or raise the awareness of our, local communities or our civilization, what have you. And if you look at what is liked when we post things, it's typically people who are already aware of and agree with, for the most part, some of the information that our community is sharing. And so we're proposing that we come together online and then begin to educate the public offline in whatever way that may be, and for people to make it their own. What we're proposing is an amiable approach, and rather than protest or riot, we're really looking to allow people to come to us, and or at least see, for example, our signs and banners, and even if they don't stop by, they can Google it later. And the whole idea is maybe they'll go down the rabbit hole on their own, as that's how it's supposed to be. It's your own journey. um so we it's a so bypassing the algorithms, we could kind of inform our local communities, right? And then there's still our online efforts. And so, for example, if we were to pass these out, which we do, which you may not be able to see this or not, but they're website links. And
Yeah,
so people are like, oh, now this is something that they're unlikely to not scroll. They're not going to scroll through their feeds and see. And so that's the opportunity for us to give that to them, and then they can do that on their own. And then at that point they'll be locked into that algorithm, and then they'll learn more, hopefully, right?
yeah. Do you
Yeah,
have do you
that's
I was gonna say, do you have like scannable QR codes?
no, but that's a good idea.
Because if you had a scannable QR code, with any kind of background on it, that CE5 disclosure outreach with the QR code that
Oh
brings
yeah,
you to like a drop list, like a link tree that has all the links, you know,
that's exactly what we're going to do. That's a great idea.
because everybody has a phone,
Yeah,
and they can access it immediately. They can take the card with them, or they can even take a picture of the QR code.
yeah, dude,
And
that's a great idea. But I really hope that everyone realizes that this CE-5 disclosure outreach, call it what you will, do with it, as you will. Um, but this is not meant for just our group. This is meant for, we believe that this is a responsibility of all of our, CE-5 ambassadors or contactees, or whatever you call it.
right,
This is our responsibility to kind of, you know, continue this disclosure. And we've really um, brainstormed and came together, and we really couldn't come up with any other ideas that would be as effective as this if we were to all come together and do it. I mean, just imagine if everybody, let's not say everybody, if there was at least one or two, maybe three people in every CE5 group were willing to go out, whether biweekly or quarterly, and set up, a little outreach event and have things like this with, information for, presentation materials for the table, and then have printout material to give people that they can just go. They don't have to stop and talk. And then if you're, I guess, aware enough or knowledgeable enough of these subjects, you can, if the person's willing, I think you should be able to discern whether someone wants to talk or, if they want to go. But then, you can go down, have a conversation with them. So
Yeah. I mean, an old kind of method that I've always used for years now has been, I start off with like the disclosure stuff. Hey, did you hear about this? And then, feel them out. And if I see like that they're into the deeper end of it, then get into the CE5 or contact stuff and see where that lands with them. Because, that not everybody initially is going to be ready to go on the deep end. I mean, some people might. So,
right.
um,
That's a great point you brought up. I just want to touch on that real quick. So we noticed that most people who, just if you're planning on doing this, most people that come up to you are already somewhat aware of or believe that, what they're seeing is a possibility, whether it be UFOs, ETs, or energy. But what we've realized is there are going to be some people who are more interested in the energy and more interested in the disclosure, and then more interested in the contact.
yeah.
And so it's just a perfect opportunity where you can give them information that actually brings all three of those together. You know what I mean? And all their little subsets of information, like contact, consciousness, and etc. So
Yeah. And I'm gonna post it in the description and the notes for everybody to access. But you put on the disclosure, the CE5 disclosure outreach event just a couple weeks ago. Do you want to just outline that event for some people?
yeah, absolutely. So, we really want to be clear that this is not we're not an organization. We're not trying to make money. We don't intend to make money. In fact, if anybody offers to support us financially, we'll reject that respectfully. We're not a religious endeavor. This is not a religious endeavor. This is simply, just trying to help awaken our local community. And what we're doing as to kick this off is to try and encourage and inspire the other CE5 ambassadors or contactees or disclosure activists abroad to begin considering, at least, reaching out to their own local communities. I mean, because the whole idea is, if all of us are doing this, there's no hiding it. I want to just share this little vision that I had. So imagine setting up in your local community, whether it be near your university or someplace with high foot traffic or high traffic, and you set up there twice a month or once a month. There's a lot of people that go by one spot in just an hour. And so if you continue to do that, it's going to eventually um, spark interest. And then if everybody's doing it, we can only imagine how much an effect that could have on our local communities and on our society, our civilization as a whole. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And
to kind of,
currently, yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna follow up on what the event that we had.
Yeah.
We were looking to provide some materials, kind of like that QR code, so we can actually have people who are interested in doing this have all the information, disclosure documents, witness testimony, briefings, anything that's energy, like Ted Loder or Eugene Mallove or any one of those guys, any books or recommended books, anything that has to do with CE5. where they can, print these out and have them on their own. I mean, and then also to use to refer to or educate yourself, or you can even give it to people who come up, like you said. So we're in the middle of working on that. We touched on that in our last meeting. Um, and we're we really think that people should just I should word this differently. We really think that, when people realize the importance of this and they begin, you know, attempting to inform their community, I think that it's really going to create a mass change. So, I mean, that's the whole idea.
Yeah, because I think, kind of a little bit of what I said before is, you can do UFO research. That's one thing. You can try your best to navigate that and learn about the UFO history and all types of UFO and events and encounters and the history of the subject, the history of disclosure. And that's kind of one aspect of this. But, what's so special, I think, and unique about CE-5 is like, well, you can do real time research, participation, interaction. And again, there are narratives. That's just part of being human, right? There's going to be stories that we tell ourselves and each other to try to make sense of everything that's going on. And there's competing interest and competing narratives of what's behind the UFO phenomenon, why there's a cover up, who the non-human intelligence and entities are. But you have the opportunity with something like CE-5 to be like, I'm going to find out myself, right? What is this all about? Like the true essence of all of this. And, rather than, it's great to do research and hear what others have to say and share on it. But with CE-5, or you have your own interactions, you have your own kind of unique perspective that you can readily offer the subject. And again, you can, if you want to look at it from a research angle, you can do real-time research, right? You're not investigating a case that
Yeah.
you weren't there for. It's something that you instigated on your own. It's like a living laboratory, so to speak. But again, you can, on a kind of more a deeper aspect of it, you're participating in the disclosure process in a sense of you're interacting with non-human intelligence on your own behalf, and there's no filter of who's telling you what it means or whatever it is. That's for you to make sense of.
Yeah.
And similar to like the 100th monkey effect, or more for genetic fields, is that when when you're participating in this firsthand, whether you want to look at it from a metaphysical consciousness aspect, or even just a practical day-to-day application aspect, you're participating in an actual change occurring, on the collective consciousness and on your own individual consciousness, right? Because I probably neither myself or you are not going to be here if we didn't have had these interactions, right?
Yep.
So that interaction that individuals have can play a really, and this is a question I always have about the UFO phenomenon, is like, okay, did the UFO phenomenon have these encounters with us? So, as a result, we would go out and do this thing and push forward disclosure in our own way.
Yeah. It's funny because the final frontier really is, CE-5 contact, and that's really the confirmation. I think most people, like, most people have to see it to believe it. I don't think
Right.
any of us would deny that. With this disclosure outreach, that's our intention to, reach that final frontier, to help people to get there. Um, or, but let's be honest, there's a lot of people that if we're just going to come out and, hey, let's make contact under the stars, as great as it sounds, there's going to be only a portion of the public that's going to be, everybody else is going to think we're out of our minds. I mean, it's a
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to use calculated discussions, use, really good references, recommendations, whether it be materials or websites, what have you. And I think that if we can at least provide those, or at least present those to people, then that will really, help them get to that point. And you'll be surprised. I mean, speaking from firsthand experience in the past, 2014, when we initially launched this outreach event, we had people who, you know, they learned about, disclosure, and then we gradually got into the contact, and before you know it, they're like, really? Okay, I definitely want to try. And that's perfect. I mean, it's up to you. And then if you have your siding, then there you go. And that's exactly what happened. And anyone, any one of us can actually help to make, that a reality. You can help to make it a reality for someone, help someone to get to that point who otherwise may have never gone down that road. They may have never chose that route had it not been for, your effort. I do want to, mention another thing about our last event, and it's really touching on, all of our disclosure activists and contactees, what have you. Um, in order for us to, I think, be effective, in addition to any of the ongoing efforts that are going on, whether it be through Congress or through other channels, legally, etc. If we were really to take control of this, as we the people, I think this is how we would do it. And we're not protesting, although we're not opposed to it. I think that this is really the um, route to help, inform at least our local communities. I mean, if you can think of any other way, we had the idea originally to put bumper stickers or to put sticky notes all over the place, right? And sure, like anything helps, you know. I mean, I think anything, or maybe not anything, but there's a lot of good ideas out there. But it's just a vision that we've shared, and I like that quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Margaret Mead, anthropologist. I mean, it's there's been times where I doubted, like, yeah, this won't work, and what am I doing? But we're going to continue to do this, and fortunately, there's already people doing this in other places. There's a gentleman, I forgot his name, Zach. I think it's Zach Screed. He's from Wisconsin. He had a little pop up that he did, and just that little bit of effort, informed people in his community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And for me, I mean, like you were saying before, I think there's nothing like having the experience yourself. And again, you can tell people about CE-5, and for me, it wasn't until I started having a number of experiences, and I was like, I needed answers to this. I completely understood that you can tell people about CE-5 and contact and interactions all day, but they're not going to have the realization, like the aha moment or the oh shit moment, uh,
yeah,
until they have that. For more or less, most people, they need that kind of validation, right? And you should have it, right? I think that's reasonable, to have that kind of event or interaction. If you're going to really take this in as a reality, you have to experience it as a reality. And again, that's something I think that's unique to CE-5 is, you're not just reading it from a book and just like, I'm taking the word of this. I mean, there might be good evidence and research to it, but again, that have the firsthand experience is really gives you a high level of conviction of what that the phenomenon is real, right?
yeah,
And it interacts with it wants to interact with people,
yeah,
because it does, right? If the UFO phenomenon want to just avoid us and not pay any attention to us, it could easily do that. But it on many occasions. There's an entire history of interactions.
Just to kind of touch, to piggyback on what you're saying, when you're you can tell people about CE-5 all day, right? And, those are interactions and, maybe even a conversation and its reaction or responses. What we're proposing is a proactive approach. I think that people respond differently when it's a proactive effort rather than reactive response and communication, just a everyday thing. Because that, for the most part, goes in one ear and out the other. I've been in so many situations where I've either seen or been a part of, like, hey, have you seen that? And they're like, yeah, I'll check it out. And then like a week later, they ask him, oh no, I didn't watch it. So I mean, there's this something about us that we'll be like, hey, did you? And you just kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. I think that this is something that's not occurring, and you can just imagine if you were to see this, that people may be more receptive to this information if it's presented in an alternative way. I mean, even if they do have this scroll in their feed, the chances of them clicking or going down the rabbit holes is far and few in between, because they're still going to scroll to their thing, that's something that they are interested in, something that they're legitimately recommended or legitimately suggested to view. It's kind of like trying to show me hunting. I don't want to see that. Even though I used to, like, I don't, not where where I am now, I don't want to see that. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's fine. And I know that the CE-5 angles is important, but the CE-5 disclosure outreach. What are your do you have any plans going forward with that?
Yes. So at this point, we are looking to, uh, you know, I guess spread the word of this idea, not necessarily what we are doing, but just the idea of this effort. We're really, trying to get it's a calling to all of us. This is our responsibility. So we're just really trying to get the word out right now. And hopefully, in a couple of years we'll see this happening, or hopefully this all just unfolds, but hopefully it all just comes out tomorrow. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like, so some of our other plans, I guess, is to, once this kicks off, to just blend in. We don't want to be the eye, this, we don't want to be the star of the show or anything like that. That is not our intention. This is completely altruistic. We just want and hope and envision others doing this kind of effort. I mean, that's just pretty much it, man.
Yeah, and I think that we have a unique opportunity again with the times that we're in, with
Absolutely.
UFOs or UAP currently in the mainstream media. No matter how they want to spin the story, people are looking at it and seeing that the Congress, Senate, Pentagon are all addressing this issue, and they're like, what is this? Is this real? What is this about? Right? So I think we have a unique opportunity where we can kind of bridge some gaps that have been there. And
I don't like the fact that, and I think a lot of us will agree, that they're, a controlled disclosure that's gradual. And some people will agree with this and others won't. And that's fine. We're all entitled to our own opinion. But the majority of, people, I believe, and I think most would agree with that, most, that, we're ready for disclosure. I think that, we're ready for a complete, I guess, um, confirmation. We're ready for that. And you know what? Maybe that's not for everyone, but I think that it's our right as human beings on this planet to know that. Whether you're ready for it or not, it's our right to at least know that that's a reality. And
yeah,
so I think, you're right. This is the perfect time. This is the perfect time to be proactive and to really, push this along.
yeah. I mean, if there was ever a time, now is it, I would say. And you know, what you just said, actually, Colonel Carl Nell uh, was at a conference in New York City the other day. Was it last night, maybe, or two nights ago? And here's a retired, I believe he's retired colonel. I think he's in the contract world now.
He's an
But
army, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, this guy, if you look at his bona fides, I mean, if someone were to know about a program like this guy has his name written all over it. Let me just put it like that. And his, he's saying, we, you know, humans basically, right? And specifically maybe the United States, um, in this case, have a moral obligation and right to know about the nature of reality. It's that aspect of it, at least, right? Okay, maybe you don't want to give over all the goodies and the secrets, like, hey, we know how this technology works, right? Like, of course eventually we want to get there, but the fundamental reality to start with, just to let people know, like, hey, we're not alone, right? Like, the dynamic of just that knowledge, right? Like, how would people react differently on this planet towards each other if they
Yeah.
knew there's other intelligences out there that may be even watching us, right? Or engaging us? We have a lot more in common with each other, and in that case, even common interests, uh, in that regard. And
I mean,
I,
it would change overnight. I'm sorry to cut you off.
yeah, right. I mean, I think so, right? And for better or worse, I wasn't there, but I don't think that people had a meltdown when they found out that the Earth was not the center of the universe.
Or
A
that it
few,
wasn't flat.
yeah, like just a few
Right.
hundred years ago. That's not too long ago, right? But
Uh,
people, people believed surely that, and whatever the belief system was at that, and they were exposed to the information, they moved on, right? Like, we still have to go to work and raise our kids and pay the bills, right? I don't think all that's just going to end. So
yep.
I don't think that presenting that, again, like you said, the people are ready. Like, I'm optimistic, and I think we should give the people a credit. Like, okay, you give this information to them, and let's make the best of it, because denying it is not the right way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, if we just if we exhaust every effort that we can and be proactive, at least the few of us who are willing and courageous enough to, be proactive, I think that that's will make all the difference and things will change overnight. I mean, I just look back 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, and I would have never imagined that the majority of the people, the majority of the public are now aware of, there's something going on, right?
Right.
And so, I just would never expected it. So I don't want to make that same mistake now. And I firmly and fully believe that if we were to, come together, how might things look 4 or 5 years from now, perhaps 10? I mean, the only, ingredients that, is missing is proactivity and willingness. And I think that that will make all the difference. We've got enough, the public's got enough now. Let's capitalize on that and do what we can. Let's, take control and, you know, find it within ourselves, because it does exist in every one of us, to do what we can to, propel, our society to where it should be. Um, so
Yeah. And I am going to put all your links in the description here. Uh, but do you have any last words and or places where people can find your work and CE-5 disclosure outreach?
yes, so CE-5 disclosure outreach on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We are currently creating content and materials for people who are aware of these things, and then also for our own local community. We hope that you come and view what we have, and maybe perhaps do something in your own community and make it your own. Make it your own and do with it what you will. And I think that every effort counts. And what better way and what better time to do it than now?
Agreed. And I hope next time maybe we're gonna have Joe Lonesome on, maybe I've been
Right
hoping to
on.
have him on, come talk about the CE-5 disclosure outreach, or just, some of his experiences and thoughts and this whole thing too. So we
Yeah,
appreciate you taking your time to come visit with us, Nate, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
absolutely. Thanks, James.
All right, take care.